I work at Bondi Beach Surf School in Sydney, and last summer an American family arrived for their first lesson. The dad walked straight past our wetsuits and announced he didn't need one because the water was probably warmer than California. I told him this was winter in Australia, and the Pacific was currently 15 degrees Celsius. He laughed and said, "Celsius doesn't apply to ocean temperatures." He lasted 4 minutes in the water before sprinting back, lips blue, demanding we install heaters. His wife asked if we had heated ocean sections like the resort pools in Cancun. When I offered them wetsuits again, the dad said he'd build up tolerance and went back in. He lasted 2 more minutes before accepting the wetsuit, then complained it was too thick and restricted his movement. I explained that's how wetsuits work. He suggested we get American-style thinner ones, a rideshare driver in Melbourne. Told me about an American passenger who insisted kangaroos were just Australian deer and got offended when corrected. The passenger explained that all countries have their version of deer, and Australia's happened to hop. When shown a photo comparison, she said evolution made them look different, but they were basically the same animal. She then asked if Australians hunt them for Thanksgiving. The driver explained, "Australia doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving," she responded, "but you speak English, so you must have it." She spent the rest of the ride explaining American holidays Australia should adopt. Then there was the American at Sydney Airport who argued with customs that koalas were bears, citing the term koala bear as legal proof. The officer explained their marsupials. Traveler responded, "In America, we call them bears, so internationally that should count." He suggested Australia update its wildlife classification to match American terminology for tourist clarity. The customs officer remained patient while the American insisted scientific taxonomy should bend to popular American usage. I manage a camping site in Tasmania, and an American couple arrived with no tent, no sleeping bags, just suitcases. They'd booked a campsite thinking it meant cabin. When I explained it was literally a plot of land, the husband said, "But we paid money." I showed them the booking description. He read it and said, "In America, campsite means accommodation. You can't just change definitions." His wife suggested we were running a scam because all campsites have structures. I offered to cancel their booking for a refund. He refused and demanded we provide a tent as compensation for false advertising. When I explained our rental tents cost extra, he threatened to contact the American embassy about Australian camping fraud. They spent 3 hours trying to book a hotel on their phones before accepting the tent rental. Review claiming Australia tricks tourists with fake camping. His wife added photos of the empty campsite as evidence, with captions explaining how real campsites look in America. The review concluded with advice for future travelers to bring your own cabin. My cousin works at a national park in Queensland, and had an American hiker demand a trail map with mile markers instead of kilometers. She explained Australia uses metric. He responded, "But you speak English, so you should use miles." When she tried converting for him, he interrupted with, "Just change the signs." How hard is it? He genuinely believed the park service could redesign trail markers for one tourist. She offered a conversion chart. He declined, saying he shouldn't have to do math on vacation. Then asked how long the 5-kilometer trail was. She said about 3 miles. He replied, "Why didn't you just say that on the sign?" Reminded him the signs were for everyone, not just Americans. He suggested Australia adopts tourist-friendly measurements. He got lost 90 minutes later and blamed the metric system. When park rangers found him, he was angry they'd taken so long, claiming he'd walked at least 10 miles. The rangers checked his tracker. He'd gone 2 kilometers. He insisted their technology was broken. A wildlife sanctuary worker in Darwin shared a story about an American visitor who tried to pet a saltwater crocodile, insisting it was probably trained. Staff yelled at him to stop. He shouted back, "I watched Steve Irwin. I know what I'm doing." When they explained, Steve Irwin was a professional who died doing this kind of work. He said, "Exactly. So it's not that dangerous if you're confident." He attempted to climb the barrier. Security escorted him out, complained on social media that Australia ruins tourism with excessive safety rules, and claimed the crocodile looked friendly. His post included photos of him posing near the enclosure with captions about Australian fear culture. 300 Americans commented agreeing that safety barriers were overreach. Someone suggested Australians were too scared of their own wildlife. The sanctuary added higher fences. The same tourist later posted about censorship when his comments were disabled by the sanctuary's social media team. I work at a pharmacy in Perth and an American tourist asked for Tylenol. I directed him to paracetamol, our equivalent. He insisted it wasn't the same. I explained it's identical, just a different brand name. He responded, if it was the same, it would be called Tylenol. When I showed him the ingredients list matching exactly, he said, that could be fake. He asked if we had real American medicine. I explained medication is medication regardless of country. He suggested I was uneducated about pharmaceuticals because I'd never been to America. He demanded to see the pharmacist. The pharmacist repeated everything I'd said. He asked if the pharmacist was actually qualified since this was Australia. The pharmacist showed him her credentials. He said, but where did you study? She said, Melbourne University. He replied, I meant like a real medical school. Left without buying anything and posted online that Australian pharmacies sell fake drugs. 4 days later, he returned, bought the paracetamol, and admitted it worked but maintained it felt different. He asked if we could order real Tylenol for his next visit. We explained import regulations. He suggested we were making excuses. My brother drives Uber in Sydney and picked up an American couple heading to Circular Quay. They pronounced it Qua. He corrected them gently. It's Quay, the wife said. That's not how it's spelled. He explained it's Australian English. The husband interrupted. English is English. You can't just change pronunciation, my brother said. Australians have said it this way for 200 years. The husband responded, well, in America, Quay is pronounced Qua. And since we have more English speakers, that's technically the correct version. His wife agreed, adding that majority rules in language. When they arrived at Circular Quay, the husband pointed at the sign and said, si quo quo. My brother didn't argue. The wife left a 3-star review saying the driver didn't know local pronunciation and needs English lessons. The review stayed up for 6 months. The husband also commented on the review, adding that Australian drivers should study proper English before working in customer service. They recommended future tourists bring pronunciation guides. A cafe. Owner in Byron Bay told me an American customer demanded a regular coffee. She asked for clarification. Latte? Flat white? Cappuccino? He repeated. Regular coffee? Normal coffee? She explained Australia doesn't use regular as a coffee term. He sighed and said, just coffee. Black, medium, she confirmed. Black coffee? Medium size? He said yes. She made it. He took one sip and said, this is wrong. Tastes burnt. She explained it's a long black, standard Australian black coffee. He insisted American coffee was smoother and this was too strong. She offered to add water. He refused and demanded a refund because she made it wrong. When she explained she made exactly what he ordered, he said, I ordered regular coffee. This is not regular. She asked what regular meant to him. He described drip filter coffee. She explained that's not common in Australian cafes. He asked why Australia refuses to serve normal coffee. She offered to make an Americano. Said, why do I have to ask for an Americano to get regular coffee? That doesn't make sense. Paid but complained loudly to other customers that Australian cafes don't understand coffee. Before leaving, he lectured her about proper coffee culture and suggested she visit America to learn. She'd actually trained in Melbourne, one of the world's top coffee cities. A taxi driver in Brisbane told me about an American couple who refused to believe the driver's side was on the right. They booked the taxi, but when it arrived, they stood on the left side, waiting for the door to open. The driver called out to them. They walked around confused, then accused him of driving an illegal vehicle. He explained Australia drives on the left, so driver's side is right. The husband said, that's a safety hazard. How is this allowed? The wife asked if there were normal taxis available. The driver explained this was normal for Australia. The husband responded, we're paying customers. You should accommodate us. He suggested the driver switch sides just for their ride. When told that was impossible, the wife asked if Australian cars had different engines that forced this arrangement. They reluctantly got in, then spent the entire ride critiquing left-side driving, calling it backwards and unnecessarily confusing. The husband claimed it caused more accidents. The driver noted Australia's road safety statistics were better than America's. The husband dismissed this as propaganda. My friend works at Sydney's train station and helped an American tourist who insisted the train map was upside down. She kept rotating it, frustrated. He asked if he could help. She said this makes no sense. North should be at the top, explained the map was stylized for clarity, not geographic accuracy. She responded, that's false advertising. Maps have rules. She demanded a proper map with north atop. He showed her a geographic map. She compared them and said, see? This one is correct, that one is wrong, he explained. Transit maps prioritize connections over geography. She said, in America, our subway maps make sense because we follow map laws. He'd never heard of map laws. She insisted they existed. Something about international cartography standards. She missed her train while arguing. When the next train arrived, she asked if it was the American direction or the wrong way. He asked what she meant. She explained some trains must go the normal direction. Every train goes both directions, he said. She found this system needlessly complicated compared to American trains, which she claimed only go one logical way and manage a hotel in Adelaide. An American guest called the front desk at 2 in the morning demanding we fix the toilet because it's flushing backwards. I went to his room. The toilet was working perfectly. I asked what he meant by backwards. He pointed at the bowl and said, the water spins the wrong direction. I realized he was talking about the Coriolis effect myth. I explained toilets don't flush in specific directions based on hemisphere. That's a misconception. He pulled out his phone and showed me a Facebook post claiming southern hemisphere water drains counterclockwise. I told him that post was incorrect. Toilet design determines direction, not geography. He responded, are you saying science is wrong? I explained the Coriolis effect applies to large-scale weather systems, not toilets. He said, I specifically came to Australia to see this, and you're telling me it's fake? That's false advertising. I clarified, Australia never advertised toilets flushing differently. He said, everyone knows this about Australia. I demonstrated flushing the toilet 5 times. It swirled inconsistently. He claimed I'd installed American toilets to hide the truth. He demanded to be moved to a room with a real Australian toilet. Oh, he had no other rooms available? He spent the rest of his stay filming our toilets and posting videos claiming Australia was covering up the Coriolis effect to disappoint tourists. His videos got 11,000 views. Half the comments were Americans saying they'd also been lied to about Australian plumbing. Some comments suggested a class action lawsuit against Australian tourism for false scientific claims. One commenter claimed they'd tested 20 Australian toilets and found inconsistent results, which they said proved deception. Working in Australian tourism taught me that confidence doesn't require accuracy. Some travelers arrive so certain their understanding is universal that contradicting evidence becomes a conspiracy. We've learned to smile, nod, and keep the first aid kits stocked. The wilderness is dangerous. But sometimes the tourists are more unpredictable. Got your own stories of travelers who knew better than locals? Drop them below. Next time, we're covering Americans trying to explain European geography to Europeans. You're not ready for what happens when someone insists Switzerland is in Scandinavia.